Hey, Warrior Saints, Father Chris here. Welcome to our Crucifixional live stream on this beautiful Thursday. Glad to have you beautiful people with us. We have been talking about a new fallacy, a new syndrome, a new sin. You do you. Exploring the Tower of Babel, we notice in chapter 11 in the book of Genesis that the people had decided to build their own way into heaven, their own self-propagation, right? That's the whole idea of building a tower up into the skies, that we will become the divine. We will become the lords of all things. And with that, as the Lord, you get to set the reference, right? You get to decide this is how things should be. This is the way to live a good life. And as Greg was telling us yesterday, when we replace God as the reference setter, as the one who establishes the reference, as God, with ourselves, we fall into this, you know what? I'm going to do what I want to do. Hence this whole syndrome of you do you. And the problem with this you do you mentality, as I understand it, and I'm working through this even somewhat right now with you out loud, but as I think about it, the problem with this you do you, when you become your own reference, or the reference of the world around you, or worse, when we allow a secular world and a secular narrative to become the reference for us, we find an interpretation of an event, of an experience, of an emotion that comes from within myself, which is not necessarily always bad. But the problem with that is I can never get outside myself. I can never see beyond what I can see. I can never see something more perfect, more true, more pure. I'm only stuck with the garbage that is the mind of Father Chris. So I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, take it for an example. Let's say, and I've dealt with this, I'm not going to spill any names, but in my ministry, I've come across, young men who have struggled, and I'm just going to pick on it for the sake of an example, have struggled with the sin of homosexuality, right? And they're questioning and they're struggling. Am I gay? Am I straight? I like girls, but I like boys. They're working through all of this struggle. And the world says very simply, you do you. That's what you felt. That's what you are. So take it for example. Let's just say that a young man somehow stumbles across an image of male porn. And inside him, when he sees this image or this video clip, there is some kind of an emotion or some kind of an experience, right? This is thus interpreted by this you do you mentality. Oh, your emotions, your feelings. That's the new reference. You do you, therefore you're gay. And this young man is pushed into a mental position that, I must be gay. Must be how I felt. And then from there, he goes with the struggles of parents are against it, or, his church is against it, or all this kind of stuff. Things are, it becomes that terrible rub, right? But really, the truth of that story is just because that young person had that, or any person had that experience or felt that emotion, it doesn't mean that he needs to allow himself to be the reference. Do you understand where I'm going with all this? What it means is that, something happened, an experience happened, an emotion was triggered. Was that just me being me, or was that something in some real sense, maybe even a demonic temptation? I'm not trying to be too voodoo about it. Like, don't think about little spirits flying around in the shadows, and that's not what I'm talking about. Demonic in the sense that it is not of God, not of the true reference, right? And so all of a sudden now, rather than say, all right, I was tempted to do this, I need to struggle through it, it may become one of those things, well, I'm the reference. I'm my own reference, and therefore I say. Does that make any sense? I don't know if it makes any sense. I don't know. They're looking at me, nodding their heads. But as I work through it, I'm thinking it's not bad to be tempted with all these other thoughts. I mean, let's just say it. The thoughts that we have, the temptations that all of us struggle through, those are products of the devil, really, and the world around us, and things that trigger those thoughts, right? I mean, things trigger those thoughts. How we respond to them, how we interpret them, comes either through the lens of myself, you do you, or it comes through the lens of the gospel, which will say, all right, struggle through it, right? Stand up and move on. Or if you continue to struggle, because it's not that easy, then you come to God, you come to the church, come to the priest, come to the warrior saints, and let's struggle together through that as you try to work out your own understanding and your own perspective according to a reference which is not yourself, but God. I hope that makes sense. It's a hard thing to do. It's a very difficult thing to do, I know, because the social pressures and the societal pressures that we feel, all of the narrative that's on in the outside, forcing and pushing this upon us, is sticking into our heads like, if you think this, you're totally wrong. You can only think what the you do you mentality. That's what's right. That's what makes you feel. If it makes you happy, you should do that. And I mean, it's a hard struggle, and it's an easy sell, right? Like, it's an easy sell for the world to push that out there. Look, let me tell you, I'll end here. The world is going to show us a funner way, right? It's a funner way, but it's not a better way, right? It may be funner in the moment. The way I'm going to show you is harder. It's much more difficult, because the way of the warrior saint requires sacrifice. The way of the warrior saint requires crucifixional living. You got to put yourself, your ego, your reference aside so you can make room for God's. But here's the point, and here's the kicker of all of it, is that it's the only way that works. The only way that leads us out of the mundane, that leads us out of the chaos that we feel out there, the brokenness, the anxiety, the depression, the sadness, the anger, the hate, the vilification of other people, the dissection of community. Oh, the only way through all that stuff is the cross of Christ. That's it. It's the only way that works. And you can't argue with me, because I have evidence galore out there. Just turn on any news, any social, anything, and you will see people not doing it the way of the cross, and they're freaking broken and miserable. Right? Even some of us who try to fight to be crucifixional have some brokenness and misery in our own lives. But without Christ, you got no shot. Right? So you can argue with me all you want. You'd be wrong. And the evidence is probably in your own life. So I'm calling you, challenging you, saying, like, get up. Stop being your own reference. Don't worry about you do you. You do God. You do His will, not your will. And I promise you, brothers and sisters, when you do it, things change. It ain't going to be easy. In fact, it's going to get harder, but it gets better. Right? All of that to say, we're here to support you on that. Join us on the way of the warrior saint by visiting warriorsaints.org. We love you, beautiful people. We're going to be back tomorrow to wrap up the week. Until then, as always, take what I said seriously. Harder is better. Easier. If someone's trying to sell you something easy and you do you, it's wrong. Instead, join us and get on the way of the warrior saint.